we've done about 100 episodes now, and there are many of them that stand out. But I got to tell you, of all the ones I've seen, I think the one that had the most impact on me, Shannon Galpin, who's an author and wrote this book, Mountain to Mountain, but she runs this program, this charity, in Afghanistan. It is fascinating to me. I think she said she's been there 20 times. I have flown into Kabul as a civilian just once, and I got to tell you, every pore in my body was on alert, because most of the time when I went there, I was surrounded by hundreds of my best friends, and they all had weapons.
We are here in Teddy Roosevelt's room at the Explorers Club in New York City with Shannon Galpin. Did I get that right?
Yep.
The 2014 Adventure of the Year, as determined by National Geographic.
Exactly.
Which means you save animals.
Or work for women's rights in Afghanistan.
Wow. How long were you there?
I've been working there for 8 years. So
it's a fun place to be.
It is a fun place to be. It's incredibly interesting, obviously, for many, many reasons. But I've been lucky enough to travel back and forth there nearly 20 times over the past 8 years.
You find yourself itching to get out of there when you're there, or?
It depends on the trip. You know, I mean, every trip coming back there now feels a little bit like coming home. But depending on the security situation, you know, there's times where you definitely feel that tingle in the back of your neck.
And you look Afghan, so you probably fit right in.
I blend in perfectly. No, the fact that I am blonde actually works greatly in my favor, because because as a foreign woman, I'm considered an honorary man. So I get this full access and equality to the gatekeepers, to the men that I have to work with to access, have access to their women, their girls, and who will determine whether a project is sustainable often. And yet I'm a woman, so I get full access to the women and get both sides of the story.
So give me an example. You go over there 8 years ago. What was the original plan? Why'd you go?
The original plan was that Afghanistan is one of the worst countries in the world to be a woman. And so I was curious about what allows for such widespread oppression and gender violence. But it's also a country that used to be part of the tourist trail. It used to be heavily touristed and explored when you have kind of the history of the Silk Road and the romance of that whole Central Asian area. So I became the first woman to mountain bike there in 2009 and continued to bike there every trip, because women are not allowed to ride bikes in Afghanistan. So I kind of, on my off days, would take my mountain bike into different areas and just push on that gender barrier.
Did you run into many mountain bikers out there?
I've yet to meet any mountain biker out there. I've had lots of men and boys ride bikes with me. Right. Never any women up until 2 years ago, when I found the first Afghan national women's cycling team.
Wow.
And so now I get to ride with women and men, but it's always road bikes. The girls haven't started mountain biking yet.
And so you go over there and you want to do this, and then you fall in love with it? I mean, what makes you stay?
Yeah, I think you completely fall in love with it. I mean, in my case, it was a decision to completely upend my world and my life. I was a sports trainer before. I decided...
In New York?
No, in Colorado.
In Colorado.
And I decided to start a nonprofit. It's a one-woman show working for women's rights. I'm a victim of gender violence, so is my only sister. And there was this overnight decision that the world needs to change, and I need to be part of that.
Has your sister been over there?
She has not.
She hasn't?
No.
But she loves the stories?
She loves the stories. She's quite happy to be in PA school and doing her thing.
Right. So you're there now, let's say a couple of years, and is the food any good?
The food is actually really good. It's, it's fresh. It's lamb, it's chicken, slaughtered that morning, rice, fresh baked bread. There's not a ton of variety, and ironically, since it was on the Silk Road, there's not a ton of spice. It's not like India, but it's good.
It's good food, and you're sleeping in a tent, or where are you sleeping?
It depends. If I'm in the cities, like Kabul, for example, you're staying in a guest house. Right. If I'm in the mountains, or remote areas, then I'm usually sleeping on the floor of some villager's house.
Now, what about the drug problem? There's a big drug problem still over there, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the heroin issue, the opium issue is still a massive problem. It's what's funding the Taliban. It's certainly what is at the heart of a lot of issues in Afghanistan. That hasn't gone away. It's probably gotten worse.
So you got the drug problem, you got poverty, you got a war going on, and you're trying to mountain bike.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely the decision that here's a very interesting way through a bike that you can empower people. It increases access to school, increases access to education, it reduces gender violence. And you see that all the time in other countries. Afghanistan is one of the few, other than Saudi Arabia, where women can't ride bikes. And so I was simply curious, one, to explore, because I'm a mountain biker and I love the mountains, and it's an incredibly beautiful country. So I was curious on a selfish issue to just explore and see what it was like. But I was really curious about this gender barrier. How deep did it go? Was this from Taliban time, or was it further back? Would there be any villager that I might meet that would allow his daughter to ride? And for the first 3 or 4 years, it was always, the men supported me. They were curious. They laughed. They rode my bike. I rode theirs. It became an incredible icebreaker to conversation, to access. Soldiers would ride my bike laughing and then let me into a place that I wasn't supposed to be let into to check it out. And then eventually I met these girls.
So do you think the men seeing you ride and being open-minded to that, then they start thinking, well, my daughter can...
I wonder often because actually, being a foreign woman and being this curiosity, I always looked at the fact of, okay, now you're okay with a girl riding a bike, whether or not I'm foreign or local. Now can we push a little bit further and let an Afghan girl ride? And I think what's interesting is in psychology, we always talk about mirroring back. I've talked to quite a few people who have worked in international aid, what's effective and what's sustainable. And a lot of it comes to this mirroring, that if you see someone who looks like you, it creates much more of an acceptance than someone who's foreign.
Sure.
So I think that I was able to open up some boundaries. But I think that you
don't look like them.
I don't look like them. And now that we've have Afghan girls riding, I'm supporting the team, training the team, and
how many girls is that? How big is that team?
There's 6 to 8 that are actually racing, but now we have over 100 plus that are now riding in the country and learning to ride bikes. And
any support from bike companies that are?
Yeah, actually Liv, which is the female line with giant bicycles.
Okay.
Liv has been insanely supportive. They sent me over with 60 racing bikes last year. So I've took over bikes. They've given me gear, equipment, and they're helping fund a documentary that we're making about the Afghan national women's cycling team.
Oh, awesome.
So they've been incredible.
Yeah, and so where do you take this thing?
So right now, the desire is to work with the national team in the hopes that as these girls are mirroring back, that this is okay, this is our right.
And getting media.
Exactly. Right. If we get more media attention, it starts to show the Afghans that not only is this acceptable, but that they're building national pride. They're showing a really hopeful, positive story in Afghanistan, and that starts to change the acceptability of it.
So if you could bring in some high-profile races where the Afghan women hopefully win.
Yes, right. Which is unlikely at this point in time. These are girls who have only been on bikes for a couple of years.
Maybe we just got to fix the race.
And there we go, a little under the table. It's very Afghan, a little corruption. No, I mean, the problem still is the security. It's a war zone. These girls are literally riding bikes and risking their lives in order to ride a bike.
Still a minefield, a lot of mines out there?
There are a lot of landmines. I've mountain biked in areas that are clear and you look down and there's something shiny and you're like, okay, back off, gotta get out of here. There's IEDs, there's roadside bombs, there's suicide bombs, there's the fact that these girls are getting rocks thrown at them. One of them's been run over by a motorcycle. I mean, they're literally risking their lives to ride a bike, but they also believe it's their right to ride a bike. And
so you're hoping that you can turn the country? I mean, that you're going to stay until it's turned?
I'm going to stay until the girls continue to ride, until the work that I've done. I've also worked in the women's prisons. I've built a school for the deaf and these other projects that I have been doing. I'm going to stay for as long as I can. The worry is that the security will deteriorate, but then you take into account the young youth movement that's going on in Afghanistan, the activists, the artists, the athletes. They have the potential, if we continue to support them, that they could turn their country. So
it doesn't go backwards. You're trying to keep it moving.
Exactly.
Moving forward.
Exactly.
And you get support from the bike company. Where else are you getting support from?
Most of the rest of the support is individual. It literally is. I wrote a memoir called Mountain to Mountain. It came out last year, and that has helped enormously because when that memoir came out, that broadens the audience.
Sure.
It shows people my journey of becoming an activist, my background and history as a gender violence survivor, but also that hope and change are more possible than fear. And I think that's what a lot of people need to realize, is even a country like Afghanistan, hope is still more powerful than fear.
Sure. And this individual support, any people in Afghanistan giving you that support, or they're mostly supporters from outside Afghanistan?
Funding is mostly coming from outside of Afghanistan.
Right.
I'd say that the support of the program, is both. The Afghans that I work with, and men and women alike, are incredibly supportive of the work I do. I couldn't do it without them.
Sure.
But most of the funding is coming from Europe or from the U.S.
I hope you're not sitting still while you listen. If you are, you better get a burpee break in.
Walk us through some massive roadblocks along the way. Obviously, the whole thing has been an obstacle.
Yeah.
But there's been some scary moments, and
It's an incredibly difficult country to work in. I mean, the corruption is probably one of the biggest roadblocks at every level. Coming from top down, there's corruption throughout Afghanistan, and that affects everything in terms of access, in terms of security, in terms of what you can or can't do.
they're lying to you, or they're just stonewalling you, or
lying to you. Bribes are wanting to be paid, or
Right.
someone is working for someone else. Most of it coming back to security. Is it safe, and
Right.
or is somebody else got an ulterior motive? Does somebody, is someone kind of befriending you because it's going to give a payout to somebody else? And of course the violence. There's still, I've had many close calls with suicide bombs, IEDs. I've had a driver pulled out of his car and beat up in front of me, and luckily we've always been safe. But it's a country where close calls are certainly part of it, and so a huge part of my job is just to mitigate my risk. Take as few risks as I can, ask a lot of questions, work with really great Afghans, and
I remember once I was going through a village and we needed horses bad, and we did like a little bribery to get the horses, but it worked, and we got to the next station.
Right.
Have you had to do a little under the table?
I haven't yet,
No.
amazingly. The only place I've actually ever finally had to say, I give up, I have to do that, is actually in Beirut, crossing into Syria. That's the only place I've ever had to do it. And yet in Afghanistan, I think I've worked with enough really good Afghans who understand what I'm trying to do, that they just help smooth the way, and they've been like, look, that's not the way we're doing this, and really almost dressing down anyone who would try to pull anything like that, and saying, this is for example, we're building a school for the deaf, and huge issues over the land and the construction of the security wall around the school. And literally my translator, Najibullah, was like, this is not the way that we're doing this. This is for the children. This is for Afghanistan. This woman's trying to help us. What's your actual price? And then it's like, 50,000 less.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was good. Give us that moment where you were done. You're going to quit and pack it in. I know you're not the quitting type, but...
Well, I'd say the closest that I had was inside the Kandahar women's prison. I went into the women's prison hoping...
As a prisoner? Or
No, luckily as an observer. And I wanted to find out why. I'd been visiting many prisons in Afghanistan. I wanted to understand why these women were in prison, what resources were there, was there any way to help them as they returned? Most were in jail for morality crimes. Many had been raped and thrown in jail. Many were trying to escape arranged marriages. And it's probably the first time in Afghanistan I felt completely helpless. So my desire was a frustration to, and feeling like I might give up was more out of helplessness versus the security issues, which is what I think most people assume is my, no-go zone of, okay, I give up, I can't do this anymore. Really, for me, it was this overwhelming sense of, I'm in a position to do absolutely nothing to help these women, and they've poured out their hearts to me. They've shared their stories, and I can't do anything to change their situation. And that's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into that story about the prison. So you're in a burqa.
Yeah, so I'm in a burqa. I'm in this Taliban-controlled area of Afghanistan. I'd been to so many prisons already, and I just didn't expect this to affect me any differently than I would at any other point in time. And I am traveling to the prison under the security of a burqa so that no one knows there's a foreigner in the car. And I get to the prison, and the commander, allows me to take the burqa off, encourages me to go meet with the women. And there was one woman there. She was dressed in a purple tunic and scarf. And for whatever reason, that was the story that kind of broke me for the first time, where she pulls up her sleeves and she's got all these like hatch mark from crisscross knife, like layer upon layer of knife scars. And it turned out that she was the third wife of a 60-something-year-old man. She married him, she was 14. He was in his 50s. The first two wives were already dead because of his beatings. And the thing that was so tragic is that you hear that story all too often. It's not that that's the first time I've heard a story like that, but it was the first time that, I'm connected with her.
You were close, yeah.
Yeah, and I, connected with her. We were getting ready to leave the prison, and I'd heard about 20 other stories at that point. And she takes the silver barrette out of her hair, and she hands it to me. And of course I refuse, because I don't want to take anything from these women. They have nothing. And they turn me around, pull out my ponytail, comb my hair with this plastic comb, shove the clip in, and kiss me on the cheek. And it's dark and it's time for me to go. And so I leave, and she meets me at the gate and shakes my hand and starts speaking to me in Pashto. And I don't speak any Pashto, I speak a little bit of Dari. But you knew, she's thanking me for being there and just giving me her wishes. And I held her hand, and just tears just started streaming down my face. And they didn't stop till I got back to the guest house. And it was the first time in like 5 years I had ever cried. I'd never cried in Afghanistan. And it was that realization, one, of our common bond. If geography was different, I would have been that woman.
Right.
And it's simply the genetic passport that I was given that allowed me to not be that woman. I was lucky enough to be raised by a middle-class family in North Dakota.
Sure.
But you realize how connected we really are, and that our stories are so interconnected. And
I don't know how you overcome that one, because you almost, sounds crazy, but you almost rather not know, right? Because to know and be helpless.
Right. And I think in my case, I would rather know. I mean, you can't, because then you can't put it back in the box.
Yeah.
And then have that. What I realized was that the power of voice is incredibly important in the work that I do. That for these women, sharing their stories to someone who actually cared enough to listen was a huge part, very cathartic for them.
Right.
But also that, okay, I can't help these women. I'm not a human rights lawyer. I can't retry their cases. But I can try to work with another generation of women that will never allow that to happen to them, that will be literate, that will be, they're the heroes in their own country, and who will fight for justice. And you see that happening, boys and girls working together, especially university age. They refuse to be victimized. They refuse to allow their country to slide backwards. And their voices are incredibly important, much more important than mine will ever be.
Well, it's awesome that you're not a quitter, and you're sticking with it. So what could we do to support those women prisons or the boys or anything? So
I guess there's three things. One is I certainly have a nonprofit called Mountain to Mountain, and it's got a lot of information on the projects that I've done. You can kind of learn a little bit more and certainly financially support if that was something that was of interest. We have a film coming out. I'm producing a film with an incredible all-female film crew called Afghan Cycles, which has a trailer on the website. That's something where we want to screen, nationally and internationally. So hosting screenings, spreading the word about the Afghan national cycling team and the movement of bikes as a vehicle for social justice. Yeah. That's incredibly important. If people will just want to learn more about the journey of becoming an activist and certainly in my case, being a survivor of gender violence, my memoir, Mountain to Mountain, is out, and that's definitely got ways that people can find to be involved as well.
What other, one last thing, what other countries have similar social aspects than what you found in Afghanistan?
Well, it's interesting because I thought Afghanistan, because it's had 4 decades of war, because the poverty is so overwhelming in the country, the infrastructure is destroyed, you kind of look at that and think, well, yeah, of course it has all of these problems. Of course women's rights is one of the worst in the world. But then I started looking at countries like Saudi Arabia, and it's highly educated, very wealthy, and way worse women's rights than Afghanistan. Right. And you start to realize that there's several countries, India, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Somalia, I think Sri Lanka is another one, that are always ranked in that top 5-6 countries that are the worst places in the world to be a woman.
Yeah, it's never that bad, right?
It's never that bad. When those are those days where you're like, okay, I hate my life. Like, what's going?
The elevator's not working.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
And you're like, okay, you know what? Like,
Right.
I'm really, really lucky
Yeah.
to have the life that I have.
Good stuff. You're awesome.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of really interesting people with a lot of unique stories. This one's about as unique and interesting as it gets, being a pioneer over in Afghanistan.
Pioneer-ess.
You've spent some time in Afghanistan. And,
I have.
I can't speak authoritatively to Afghanistan at all, let alone her experience, but how does that compare to your experience over there?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, our experiences are totally different, but I recognize that what she's doing is unbelievable. It is full of risk. It is full of danger. I mean, she knows that. She's taken it on. She's bringing the world of cycling to these girls of Afghanistan. And, for those people who don't know, even a simple thing like riding a bicycle is not open to a girl or to a woman in that culture. And so she's a foreign woman who has placed herself, she's been there about 20 times, into that country, into that culture, into that conflict, and has tried to bring some positivity, some joy, some exercise, some change into there. I applaud her for doing that. I hope that it goes where she wants it to go. I fear that there will be some downside. Somebody was not everybody is going to look kindly on change in Afghanistan.
I think that's one thing that I'm really grateful for these podcasts for, because honestly, I didn't know that. I mean, I didn't know that bike riding was even an issue for women in Afghanistan. I guess it's maybe naive on my behalf, but talk about a frame of reference, right? Something that we take for granted, riding a bike, is this massive, almost like activist towards women's rights endeavor. And then if you think about it, the military also has just this amazing purview into like the cultures and the traditions and of different areas. But for us, here's a woman who's taking something that she loves to do that we take for granted in this country. And even though it's only 100 people that she has in the Afghan National Cycling Club, or I forget the term.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a massive impact. So you say one person can't change, but here she's affected that many people, and it has massive visibility in the country.
Yeah, and
I think it's a vehicle, like literally and
Good one, Mark.
metaphorically, for affecting change, because these girls are saying, this should be my right to be able to ride the bike, and something as simple as that, as being able to transport yourself, we do take that for granted, and I think it is a vehicle for change there. And I admire the fact that she has like this impossible task ahead, but recognizes that if I don't do something, then it's just going to stay where it is or get worse, as opposed to maybe triggering something bigger.
And I think with what you were saying is that there likely is some blowback, and there likely are some issues that come out of it, and yet you get this person who has chosen her own place to be very courageous and at least start to nudge it in the right direction. You look at any societal change that is large, takes a while, right? It's like turning around a ship.
Right. And we're talking about allowing young girls to ride a bike, but really what we're talking about is freedom.
Yeah.
All right, and that's what they're holding on to, the Afghan culture, right? Mm-hmm. These girls, if you can ride a bike, you can leave your village. If you can ride a bike, you can leave your family. Mm-hmm. If you can ride a bike, you can go out and you can hear other things or learn other things. So it's like when we were kids, we could ride the bike, we could go, so many blocks away, and then we turned 16, we got our car, we could go much further away, right? I mean, So it's about freedom, and that is a very tightly held society, especially for young girls that the families hold them, they hide them, the burqas, the rest of that. So they're not allowed to just go out. So I think it's more than riding a bike. I think it's a question. She's bringing young women a sense of freedom.
And yet, I just want to draw on a really odd tangent maybe, and that's that she's over there trying to free up this culture and trying to create more independence for these young women. And like you say, it really is a cultural thing. And yet I look at our culture back home where we have all this freedom, we have all this ability, and yet when I was a kid, I was out riding my bike and you were out riding your bike, and our parents didn't care where we were.
Right.
And now it almost feels like we've got so much freedom that we're not using it. People will drive their kids to a birthday party and sit idling in the car till it's done so they can drive them home. kids aren't out exploring and doing things. So it's just amazing. Like you say, we take it so for granted that we're actually giving it away while she's over there trying to help other people.
Yeah, we're in a world where we make up dangers for our children, and they're in a world where the dangers are real and present, and they're fighting just for that little freedom they have.
And I think that's an important point, because she says, well, it's not me being courageous, it's these girls who are actually riding the bikes who have to deal with the roadside bombs, and then all of these, massive dangers that they face every day. For them to get on the bike, they're the ones that are really exhibiting, the grit and the endurance. I think also, cultures are to be respected, and even though we have visions of things in our country, you have to respect where everyone comes from. But
go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm a big fan on immersing in different cultures so you learn more about the world. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of the documentary from that, because we live in a cocoon in the Western world of we're protected by freedoms, and we have great qualities of life and good finances, and so I'm kind of interested to see sort of how that opens up a dialogue elsewhere as well.
So to stay up to date on that, find out more about her initiative and find out more about Spartan Podcast, go to SpartanUpPodcast.com.
Ride your bike there.
Or just click your mouse.
Thank you for listening to another epic story of success.
We hope you enjoyed the episode. To find more show notes, audio, and video, please visit us at SpartanUpPodcast.com.
The Spartan Up Podcast is brought to you by Spartan.
To find a race near you, visit Spartan.com.